Brian Krause here. I recently had the opportunity to go on a 6 month speaking tour where I traveled the U.S. talking to thousands of security professionals, along with several hundred security sellers. And as a result of that, I got plenty of questions on all sorts of topics. But in particular, time and time again, I was asked, what is the most actionable response I can take to bolster my security? What should I be doing? In general, what I find most IT guys have gone out there, they've tried to move various applications to the cloud. The ultimate goal was to help the business out, make the business more productive. Obviously, people like to do a good job. However, instead of apps working for them in that smooth, seamless manner, just a ton of time and frustration is spent trying to log into apps, figure out what passwords are, do resets, and then of course there's the whole security nightmare that once a breach happens, someone gets in, they steal all these passwords. Now we're just in a very bad situation. So with that said, I wanted to answer a way to approach this problem. So to really set the stage here, I thought we might do a quick whiteboard. And, in particular, I found an interesting stat that we see time and time again, but 81% of breaches are a result of weak, stolen default passwords. I mean, this is something we see out of Verizon, and we really see all over the place. And most people tend to agree that that is probably the easy, most efficient way to break into a network. Now, when we look at the cybersecurity industry in general, something to the tune of $130 billion will be spent on security this year. However, we still see breaches happening all the time, so clearly something isn't working. And I think what we tend to see that is likely the problem is only 10% of security budgets are spent on identity and access management. So the gap becomes if the vast majority of breaches are a result of passwords, and only a small amount of our security money is going towards fixing this, that is probably the issue. So let's take a quick look at where one of the big struggles we have. And this is really with how security and usability work together. Traditionally, if you have a lot of security around something, it is not going to be very usable. Case in point might be, hey, if I take a system offline, it is super secure, however, kind of hard to use. Now, what people are really looking at is a more modern approach and saying, hey, I need a high level of security, but I need these applications to be easily accessible by all of my users. And how do we go about accomplishing this? Well, what I found based on all the various conversations I've had is by and far, the easiest way is to come up with a nice secure access management framework. So what we look at is saying, hey, how can I make it easy to access my applications? And how do I make it very secure? And this is done really with three simple steps. It starts with removing the use of passwords wherever possible and really getting down to a single password or ultimately no password at all. Now, if I'm not going to have any passwords, I need to truly prove the identity of that person. And to prove identity, I need to have systems in place so I know only the right person is accessing. And then finally, there are going to be times that I need to step up authentication, which means I'm asking for some sort of password or some sort of MFA response. But I need to make authentication decisions based on risk. So instead of asking for you to authenticate every single time, very annoying, I only ask you to authenticate when I see something out of the ordinary. So what are the technologies that we see used for this? Well, first and foremost, around passwords, we see single sign-on technologies. This allows us to consolidate all of the different identities to a single directory. And then from there, we can use some sort of token, like a SAML token, and use that as the method to authenticate into the application environment. Now, from there, checking identity, this is done with multi-factor authentication. This has been proven time and time again to be highly effective and works as a great method to make sure the right person's accessing an app. Now, however, I mentioned that MFA is kind of a pain in the butt. No one really likes it. So the way we make MFA work for you is we use user behavior analytics. Since we're doing single sign-on, we know something about the application. We have the MFA technology applied on top of that. we can start to do is say, hey, I see you always log in Monday to Wednesday, the hours of 9 to 5, and you only access 5 applications. Let's say you access application number 6. That's totally allowed within policy. However, that's just slightly different from what I normally see you do. I'm going to step up a little authentication. Now all of a sudden I see you come in, Saturday night, 3 a.m. Maybe that's just too weird because just your job role would necessitate that not to happen. I just cut off access altogether. And how do we do this? This is where we use an adaptive SSO platform. And with this, what this allows us to do is have one simple solution. And it makes it very, very easy to deploy. It allows us to secure from the number one threat, which is stolen identity or stolen passwords. And we're able to actually increase productivity because it's very, very easy for our users to access their various applications. And at the end of the day, what does this allow for IT? Well, it makes your apps work for you versus you working to try to access your applications.